The podcast you are about to listen to is centered on a book titled Divine Wisdom: Key to Mental and Intellectual Excellence by Pastor Jonah Okwudiri Jacob. Pastor Jonah is both the author and owner of the book titled Divine Wisdom. For inquiries on how to get the hard copy, audio, or PDF version of the book, kindly contact Impact Media through the informations at the end of this video. God bless you in Jesus' mighty name.
Welcome back to the Divine Wisdom podcast series on Voice of Direction. In our previous episode, Pastor Jonah Okwudiri Jacob showed us why earthly wisdom, despite its promise of success, ultimately leads to emptiness when separated from God. Today, we build on that foundation as we begin exploring God's answer to humanity's deepest need, divine wisdom. And imagine for just a second that you possess a strategic advantage that is so profoundly powerful it literally architected the very foundations of the universe.
Yeah, that is a staggering thought.
Right. But then add to that, it's so radically accessible that it's actually screaming for your attention in the middle of your morning commute or, sitting in the boardroom or right there in your living room. Today, we were really digging into the blueprint for that exact advantage.
It's just a phenomenal shift in perspective. And if you are returning to the series, we are so thrilled you're continuing this journey with us. I mean, we spent a lot of time last week really deconstructing the mechanics of earthly wisdom, the constant striving, the kind of Machiavellian maneuvering, and just the sheer exhaustion of trying to outsmart everyone around you, just to secure some temporary position.
Yeah, exhausting is the perfect word for it.
Truly. So today we are moving from the diagnosis to the cure. We are dissecting what the alternative actually looks like, how it breathes, and how it acts in the real world.
Exactly. And hey, if you are tuning in for the very first time, pull up a chair, settle in. You can absolutely grasp the architecture of today's deep dive without having heard the previous ones.
Oh, for sure.
Though, we highly recommend you circle back later to get that full, jarring contrast between the wisdom of the world and the wisdom of God. But the blueprint for today's study, the anchor for everything we were about to unpack, it comes straight from the book of James, specifically James chapter 3, verse 17.
Right, which is just a masterclass in itself.
It really is. Pastor Jonah Okwudiri Jacob uses this single dense verse as the definitive outline for what divine wisdom actually looks like in practice. So our mission today is to move far beyond just, acknowledging this wisdom as some abstract, high-minded theological concept. We are going to examine the actual mechanics of how its specific characteristics must manifest in your everyday, gritty, real-world Christian living.
Because, honestly, theology without application is, it's just philosophy, right?
Right, exactly.
James 3.17 gives us this incredible sequential list of attributes. It reads, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And I think it's vital to note that is not just a poetic list.
No, not at all.
It is a structural progression. There's an order to it.
Yeah, so let's start right at the bedrock with the very first word James uses to describe this wisdom from above. He says it is pure, and he is highly intentional with the sequencing there. He says it is first pure. Pastor Jonah Okwudiri Jacob explains that this word pure means entirely unmixed. It means unadulterated.
Completely unmixed, right.
It operates at the absolute highest order of moral standard and integrity. It is guiltless. It is morally undefiled.
And that word first is, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting in that verse. Before it can be peaceable, before it can be gentle or, full of mercy, it must fundamentally be pure. Pastor Jacob is highlighting that divine wisdom does not defraud, it doesn't manipulate, and it does not defile.
Right.
It is utterly sincere in its composition. There are absolutely no hidden clauses with it.
Well, and I want to push back on this a little bit, or at least, look at the friction this creates in our modern context. Because we live in a world that operates almost entirely on the earthly wisdom we talked about last time. A world where scheming, cutting corners, exploiting loopholes, and aggressively outsmarting the competition, it's not just normalized, it is financially rewarded.
Absolutely. It's socially celebrated.
Exactly. So if earthly wisdom is all about securing the bag or climbing the ladder by any means necessary, is the absolute purity of divine wisdom actually a strategic disadvantage in a cutthroat world? Like, does being 100% pure simply make you a naive target?
Yeah, and that is the defining tension of the Christian walk in the modern marketplace, isn't it? It absolutely feels like a disadvantage when you were looking at a really short-term timeline.
Yeah, short term, it looks like you're losing.
Right, but let's look at the actual mechanics of purity. When you operate with earthly wisdom, when you scheme, manipulate, or try to maintain a facade, you are carrying an immense cognitive load. I mean, you have to constantly look over your shoulder. You have to expend mental and emotional energy remembering, the specific lies you told to specific people.
Well, yeah, the tracking, keeping the story straight.
Exactly. You have to manage the fallout of the people you defrauded. You are essentially building an empire on a structural flaw.
Let's visualize that structural flaw for a second.
Right.
Instead of thinking about purity as just a moral checklist, think about it like the structural integrity of a deep-sea submarine. If you are building a vessel that's meant to withstand the crushing pressure of the Marianas Trench, the titanium hull has to be absolutely unconditionally pure.
Oh, I love this analogy. Yeah.
Right. If the manufacturer mixes in even a fraction of a percent of a weaker, cheaper metal just to save some money, if there is a tiny microscopic inclusion of something else in that hull, it might not matter while the submarine is sitting on the surface. Everything looks completely fine when the waters are calm.
Right. On the surface, the earthly wisdom of cutting that corner seems to have paid off. I mean, they saved money, they hit their deadline, and the boat still floats.
But the moment that submarine descends into the deep ocean, the moment it faces the immense, unforgiving pressure of reality, that tiny percentage of impurity becomes the exact point where the entire vessel implodes.
Wow. Yeah.
Purity isn't about being prudish or fragile. Purity is about structural integrity under pressure. A mixed motive, a half-truth, a slight manipulation. That is the structural flaw that causes an individual's life, career, or ministry to completely implode when a real-world crisis hits.
That is exactly it. That analogy perfectly captures the mechanics of what Pastor Jacob is saying here. Earthly wisdom is fundamentally structurally unsound. I mean, a tiny bit of truth exposed by a whistleblower or an audit, or honestly just the passage of time, can cause the whole carefully constructed earthly empire to collapse.
Yeah, it falls apart so fast.
But when you operate in divine wisdom, which Pastor Jacob reminds us is of the highest moral order, there is no mixture. There is no microscopic inclusion of deceit in your hull. You don't have to waste bandwidth maintaining a facade because you haven't defrauded anyone.
Right, you're not managing a lie.
Exactly. It might seem slower than the earthly hustle. It might take longer to build the submarine out of pure titanium, but it is impenetrable. It endures the pressure.
And understanding that mechanical reality of purity actually creates the mechanism for the second attribute James lists. He says it is first pure, then peaceable. Those two aren't just randomly placed next to each other.
No, definitely not.
Because you aren't exhausting your mental bandwidth, keeping track of your lies, because your motives are structurally pure, your nervous system can finally rest. That's why James links purity directly to being peaceable.
The cause and effect logic there is profound. Pastor Jacob makes an important observation regarding this exact transition. He notes that earthly wisdom naturally breeds trouble. It breeds wars, relational heartache, and even severe associated sicknesses.
Physical sicknesses. Yeah.
Right. But divine wisdom gives a state of quietness, absolute tranquility, because the structural integrity is secure, the internal environment is peaceful.
Let's dissect the sociological impact of that earthly trouble for a minute, because we see it everywhere in hustle culture. Earthly wisdom demands that you exist in a perpetual state of warfare.
Constant competition.
Yes. You are in competition with your coworkers for the promotion. You are trying to keep up with the lifestyle of your neighbors. You are fighting for status on social media. It is a biological reality that living in a constant state of fight or flight spikes your cortisol, it shreds your immune system, and it destroys your cardiovascular health.
It really does.
Pastor Jacob explicitly mentions sickness and heartaches associated with that kind of earthly striving. It is literally killing us.
It is the physiological cost of a flawed operating system. Divine wisdom, however, is inherently disposed to peace. It implies total freedom from disorder. And, it is little wonder, as Pastor Jacob powerfully points out, that our Lord Jesus Christ, who is the very embodiment and wisdom of God, is called the Prince of Peace.
The Prince of Peace.
Yeah. When you download and operate in divine wisdom, you are forcibly removing yourself from that frantic, anxiety-ridden earthly scramble. You possess peace not because you don't have ambition, but because your wisdom does not require you to crush someone else in order to succeed. Your advancement isn't contingent on someone else's destruction.
That is so good. Your advancement isn't contingent on someone else's destruction. So if we accept that this wisdom is structurally pure, completely unmixed with worldly deceit, and that it generates this profound biological and spiritual peace well, the natural human assumption is that something so pristine must be locked away somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. We project our earthly economics onto it. In earthly economics, scarcity creates value. If it's pure and perfect, it must be hidden in a vault. Only the elite get access to it.
Exactly. You'd assume this kind of divine wisdom is hidden away on an inaccessible mountaintop, guarded by ascetics, and you have to go on a grueling 30-year pilgrimage just to get a brief glimpse of it. But the blueprint in James completely shatters that assumption. It is the exact opposite of hidden. James says it is easy to be entreated.
Easy to be entreated, which means it is radically approachable. It's yielding, it's accessible. The author, Pastor Jonah Okwudiri Jacob, reminds us that the door of divine wisdom is completely open to all.
To everyone.
Everyone. And to truly understand the scale of this accessibility, Pastor Jacob brings in some of the most striking imagery in the entire Bible from Proverbs chapter 8. In this passage, wisdom is personified, and she is behaving in a way that completely defies our expectations of the sacred.
She is standing in the middle of the street, literally. Proverbs 8 says she stands at the top of high places, by the way, in the places of the paths. She cries at the gates, at the entry of the city, at the coming in of the doors. She says, "Unto you are men I call, and my voice is to the sons of man."
Yeah.
This is not a passive guru waiting silently in a cave for a worthy student to arrive. She is actively shouting in the busiest, loudest, most aggressively public squares of human life.
Let's contextualize that location for a moment, because that's huge. What does it mean that she's crying out at the entry of the city and at the gates?
Right, because that meant something very specific back then.
Exactly. In the ancient Near Eastern world, the city gates were not just a point of entry. They were the epicenter of society. The gates were where the elders sat to settle legal disputes. It was the courtroom. Wow, okay.
It was the primary marketplace where merchants haggled and trade was conducted. It was the center of politics, of gossip, and of commerce. Wisdom isn't isolating herself in a silent monastery. She is standing right in the middle of our economic friction, our legal battles, and our daily chaotic commutes.
And she is appealing directly to the people who are making a mess of things. She doesn't just call out to the elite theologians or the spotless saints. She says, "O ye simple, understand wisdom, and ye fools, be ye of an understanding heart." She's calling out to the simple and the fools.
The radical humility of divine wisdom is staggering. She's profoundly approachable. And the historical and cosmic context that Pastor Jacob provides from Proverbs 8 makes this street-level accessibility almost incomprehensible.
How so?
Well, because this wisdom that is currently shouting over the noise of the marketplace, she has existed since before time itself began. In the text, wisdom speaks and says, "The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting. When there were no depths, I was brought forth, before the mountains were settled." Man, before the oceans had water, before the mountains were formed, before the first molecule of dust existed on this planet, wisdom was already there.
She was the architect's companion. The text explicitly says that when God prepared the heavens, she was there. When he gave the sea its boundary so the waters wouldn't overstep, his command, she was there, as one brought up with him. She is the foundational logic of the entire cosmos. Every law of physics, every mathematical absolute, every moral truth is built on her.
That's incredible to think about.
It is, and yet, and this is the beautiful, mind-bending paradox Pastor Jacob highlights, this cosmic, eternal, universe-building force desperately desires to dwell with humanity. Proverbs 8 says she was rejoicing in the habitable part of his earth, and my delights were with the sons of men. The architect of the stars delights in the sons of men.
Okay, I have to introduce some real-world friction here, because this paints an incredible picture, but it begs a massive question for anyone listening. If this ancient, foundational, universe-building wisdom is literally screaming in our financial districts, at our city gates, in our social media feeds, offering us a structurally sound life, why do the most ruthlessly earthly wise people seem to win all the time?
Yeah, that's the hard question.
Right. Like, why is humanity still struggling so profoundly? Is she just being drowned out by the algorithms? Is the noise of modern earthly wisdom just too loud for us to hear her?
It's a fair question, but it's not an issue of volume, it's an issue of volition. This brings us to the terrifying mechanics of human choice. Wisdom is shouting, yes, she is making her presence unequivocally known in the consequences of our actions and the quiet convictions of our conscience. But Pastor Jacob points out that she proclaims her presence and asks people to make a choice.
It's a choice, yes.
If they move toward her, they receive life, light, and structural integrity, but they retain the sovereign ability to walk away.
We can choose to ignore the architect. And what happens when we do?
We invite our own destruction. Wisdom offers incredible, tangible things in Proverbs 8. She says, riches and honor are with me, yea, durable riches and righteousness. Let's pause on that word, durable.
Durable riches.
Right, not the fleeting, ephemeral riches of the earthly hustle that disappear with a market crash or a ruined reputation, but durable generational stability. But alongside that offer, she issues a terrifyingly objective warning. The very last verse of Proverbs 8 says, but he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death.
Let's marinate on that phrase for a second. Wrongeth his own soul. That is so much heavier than just breaking a rule. In earthly wisdom, if you break a rule, you might get a fine, or you might get away with it if you have a good lawyer. It's external.
Right, it's a slap on the wrist.
But divine wisdom says that if you sin against her, if you reject the fundamental logic of the universe, you aren't just breaking an external law. You are inflicting violence on your own soul.
You are stepping out of the submarine without a pressure suit. The universe is built on a specific moral and spiritual physics. When you reject divine wisdom, you aren't just angering God, you are fighting the gravitational pull of reality itself. You are wronging your own soul.
Wow.
The accessibility of divine wisdom means no one has an excuse. She is crying out. She is easy to be entreated, but she respects human agency too much to force herself upon you. You have to actively choose to hearken to her, to receive her instruction rather than silver, and her knowledge rather than choice gold.
And because she is crying out in the public square, because she is standing in the dust of the marketplace calling out to everyone, her invitation naturally crosses every conceivable human boundary, which moves us seamlessly into the next defining attributes from the James 3.17 blueprint.
Yes, the progression continues.
We've seen that she is pure, peaceable, and approachable. Next, James tells us she is full of mercy and good fruits, and crucially, without partiality.
Let's examine the mechanics of mercy and good fruits first, because they operate in tandem. Pastor Jonah Okudiri Jacob teaches that mercy is God's divine gift and special grace to man. It is unmerited favor.
You can't earn it.
No, you cannot earn it. It is a pure structural gift from the architect. Meanwhile, the good fruits are the tangible rewards for righteous living based on active obedience to God's word. Divine wisdom is completely full of both. It balances the unearned grace of mercy with the cause and effect reality of good fruits.
It is a phenomenal operating system. Grace freely given when we fail, combined with durable rewards faithfully earned through aligning ourselves with her instructions. But I want to spend a significant amount of time digging into this next phrase, without partiality.
Oh, this is a big one.
Because in our current cultural moment, this might be the most difficult attribute to actually implement.
It absolutely is. Let's define the terms. To be partial means to be biased. It stems from irrational reasoning, or a framework of thinking that is completely void of intellectual and spiritual standards. Pastor Jacob emphasizes that whenever partiality or bias becomes institutionalized in a society, or even normalized in a person's individual life, development is dangerously impaired.
Impaired how?
It stifles economic growth, it suffocates justice, and it entirely arrests spiritual maturity.
Let's pause on that word irrational for a second, because normally when we talk about bias or partiality, we frame it purely as a moral failing. We say it's mean or it's unkind to be biased, but you and Pastor Jacob are saying it is actually irrational. It is a failure of logic.
Precisely. Remember, divine wisdom is the foundational logic of the universe. To be partial to judge the value of a human soul based on external temporary metrics like wealth, race, or social status is objectively illogical when you view it from the perspective of eternity.
Just doesn't make sense.
Right. As Pastor Jonah Okudiri Jacob points out, Proverbs 8.17 explicitly states, "I love them that love me, and those that seek me early shall find me." Pastor Jacob highlights that the words them And those in that scripture are completely universal pronouns.
They don't specify anyone.
Exactly. They do not make reference to any particular demographic. It is a blanket, universal invitation to all humans that inhabit this world.
It fundamentally rules out any respective persons. Divine wisdom does not recognize the caste systems we have built. It doesn't care about the pigmentation of your skin. It has absolutely no regard for color, race, or gender. The singular solitary qualification, as Pastor Jacob eloquently puts it, is that you are alive and privileged to hear this invitation.
Which means we have to confront human tribalism head-on. Earthly wisdom is entirely dependent on tribalism. It constantly slices humanity up by demographics, by tax brackets, by political affiliation, by nationality.
It's all about demographics now.
Yes. Earthly wisdom preaches the gospel of networking, like network exclusively with the wealthy and powerful and ignore the poor because they offer no return on investment. Or trust only the people who look and vote exactly like you and fear the people who don't. Earthly wisdom leverages division for profit.
But Pastor Jacob writes that divine wisdom is the mother of all. She participated in the creation of all things. So for you listening right now, as you walk into your office tomorrow or as you navigate a polarized family dinner, how does embracing this specific attribute living without partiality mechanically change the way you interact with human beings? How do we rewire our brains to overcome that deeply ingrained earthly tribalism?
It requires a total architectural overhaul of how you assign value to others. If you truly download and operate in divine wisdom, you possess a jarring realization. The person bagging your groceries at the supermarket and the billionaire CEO of your company were both intricately formed by the exact same divine architect.
Wow.
Their souls have the exact same eternal weight. Because wisdom created all things, she values all souls equally. Living without partiality means you stop allowing earthly metrics to dictate your level of respect. You strip away the earthly prejudices.
Right.
Whether someone is tall, short, white, black, Jewish, Greek, Arab, American, Nigerian, rich, or poor, and these are the exact demographics Pastor Jacob specifically lists, they are all equally invited to find wisdom, which means they are all equally worthy of your dignity.
It completely levels the playing field. You cannot operate in divine wisdom and harbor prejudice simultaneously. The two operating spectrums are mutually exclusive. Prejudice is a structural flaw. If you try to carry it into the deep waters of divine wisdom, going back to our analogy, your submarine will implode.
Exactly. Because prejudice is irrational reasoning, it cannot coexist in the same mind with the highest logic of the universe.
And this leads us to a terrifying, but I think liberating consequence. When you accept an invitation from a wisdom that sees everyone equally, a wisdom that knows the very foundational code of the earth, you can no longer wear masks.
No, you can't.
If she sees past the demographics, she sees past the PR spin. You cannot pretend to be something you're not, because wisdom's vision is penetrating. Which brings us to the final and perhaps most piercing attribute in James 3.17, without hypocrisy.
Without hypocrisy. This is where the rubber meets the road, because it demands the absolute death of our curated self-image.
Let's dissect the modern nuance of hypocrisy. We all know the basic definition. A hypocrite is someone who says one thing and does the exact opposite. The word itself comes from the Greek word hypocrites, which literally means a stage actor who wears a mask.
Right, playing a part.
But Pastor Jacob uses some incredibly sharp contemporary examples to illustrate how this manifests today. He talks about the politician who stands at the podium giving an impassioned speech about the need to preserve the economy and enact austerity measures, while simultaneously, behind closed doors, they are looting the national treasury.
It is the privatization of vice and the publicization of virtue. We see it in every sector of society.
We really do. He gives another potent example. The person who stands up publicly in their community or church to vocally condemn certain television programs for being immoral or destructive, but then secretly subscribes to a foreign cable station to binge watch those exact same programs in the dark.
Wow. Yeah, that hits close to home for a lot of people.
Pastor Jacob notes that we encounter these types of actors every single day. The act of hypocrisy isn't just an accidental moral slip, it is a fundamental, calculated strategy of the earthly wisdom we discussed in the previous episode. Earthly wisdom has actually rebranded hypocrisy in the modern era. We call it PR, or code switching, or protecting the brand.
Protecting the brand, exactly.
Earthly wisdom demands that we fragment our identity, that we wear one mask for our LinkedIn profile, one mask for our church pew, and a completely different mask for our private browsing history.
That fragmentation is exhausting. It is the ultimate manifestation of earthly wisdom's reliance on illusion. earthly wisdom tells you that the only thing that matters is maintaining a profitable image, regardless of the rotting reality underneath. But James 3.17 demands an end to that specific modern fragmentation of self. Divine wisdom requires an integrated, singular identity.
Let me offer an analogy to explain how divine wisdom forces this integration. I don't view divine wisdom just as a map. I view it as a massive, high-powered, military-grade spiritual spotlight.
Oh, I like that. A spotlight.
Right. When you are walking through a dangerous, dark forest, a spotlight is incredible comfort because it guides your path. It shows you where to step. But a spotlight doesn't just illuminate the ground in front of you. It illuminates you.
Yes, it does.
It exposes whatever you're holding in your hands. It exposes whatever you have stuffed into your coat pockets. You cannot stand in the brilliant, unyielding light of divine wisdom and expect to keep your private vices hidden in the shadows.
The light is indiscriminate. It exposes the path, but it also exposes the traveler. And this mechanical reality of the spotlight is exactly why Jesus Christ clashed so fiercely with the religious establishment of his day. Pastor Jonah Okwudiri Jacob explains that Jesus violently decried this earthly wisdom, this mask-wearing, in Matthew 23.
What did he say?
He spoke to the multitudes about the scribes and the Pharisees, and he said, "All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not."
They say and do not, he called out the actors.
He pointed the spotlight directly at their masks. But to truly understand the mechanics of how divine wisdom dismantles hypocrisy without mimicking the aggression of earthly wisdom, we have to spend some time looking at one of the most brilliant case studies in all of antiquity. It's found in John chapter 8, which Pastor Jacob brings directly into our study today.
The story of the woman caught in adultery. Let's spend some time dissecting this, because the layers of strategy and psychology here are just astounding. This isn't just a story about forgiveness, it's a high-stakes legal trap.
It is a masterclass in earthly scheming. Let's look at the historical and legal dynamics of this scene. The Pharisees and scribes drag this woman, who they claim was caught in the very act of adultery, and they throw her down in front of Jesus in the temple courts.
Publicly humiliating her.
Exactly. And they publicly point out that the law of Moses demands she be stoned to death. Now, they don't actually care about this woman, and they don't actually care about the law. She is a pawn.
Right, she's bait.
This is a classic, meticulously designed trap, born entirely of earthly wisdom. They are trying to outsmart Jesus and destroy his ministry in one move.
Because they have engineered a complete catch-22. Rome had stripped the Jewish Sanhedrin of the ius gladiae, the right of the sword. The Jewish leaders were not legally permitted by their Roman occupiers to carry out capital punishment.
Right.
So earthly wisdom has boxed Jesus in. If Jesus says, yes, follow the law of Moses, stone her, he is instantly guilty of sedition against Roman law, and the Romans will arrest him as an insurrectionist.
He'd be done.
But if he says, no, let her go, Rome says we can't, he becomes a heretic who is publicly instructing the people to abandon the sacred law of Moses. Either way, his reputation and his life are over.
It is a flawless earthly trap. A checkmate. The mob is standing there, stones in hand, bloodlust in their eyes, just waiting for him to make a fatal choice. But look at how Jesus operates in divine wisdom. He doesn't panic.
He doesn't defend himself.
No. He doesn't hire a lawyer. He doesn't start a frantic theological debate about Roman jurisprudence versus Mosaic covenant. He bends down and writes in the dust. He utilizes silence to let their adrenaline peak and their cognitive dissonance settle in.
Which is brilliant.
It is. And then he stands up and delivers a single, surgically precise sentence. He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. Or, as Pastor Jacob notes from another translation, he that is not guilty of similar sin.
Boom, the spotlight turns on. At maximum wattage.
And notice the mechanics of what happens next. The text says they were all pricked in their conscience and they went away one by one, beginning with the eldest down to the youngest.
Why the eldest first?
The eldest left first because they had the most years of hidden hypocrisy suddenly illuminated by the spotlight. Divine wisdom didn't scream at them. Jesus didn't pull out a scroll and publicly list off all their secret sins to humiliate them. He didn't use their tactics of public shaming. He simply spoke a pure, impartial truth, and it effortlessly dismantled their trap by exposing their internal pretense.
Pastor Jacob makes a profound observation here that I think completely redefines how we should handle conflict. He writes that divine wisdom does not pretend. Rather, it pricks the conscience of the one acting under pretense.
It pricks the conscience. It penetrates the mask. When you bring your carefully curated hypocrisy into direct contact with the structural purity of divine wisdom, the pretense shatters. You are suddenly intensely aware of your own unworthiness to throw stones.
Right.
This is how divine wisdom cures us of our aggressive judgment of others. Because the spotlight of wisdom reveals our own desperate need for the exact same mercy we talked about earlier.
It all connects. It's so cohesive. The purity creates the peace. The accessibility extends the invitation. The impartiality removes the tribalism. And the absence of hypocrisy allows us to stand in the light and actually receive the mercy.
It's a complete system.
So to synthesize all of this for you listening today, look at the staggering portrait of divine wisdom that James 3.17 and Proverbs 8 have painted for us. We are not looking at a list of religious chores. We are looking at an advanced spiritual operating system.
Absolutely.
It is a wisdom that is structurally pure and completely unmixed with worldly deceit, meaning it won't implode under pressure. It is deeply peaceful, biologically and spiritually removing you from the frantic, cortisol-soaked anxiety of the daily hustle. It is remarkably approachable, crying out to you over the noise of your busy life.
It is entirely full of unmerited grace and tangible rewards. It operates with zero tribal bias, valuing every single human soul you lock eyes with equally. And it is brutally, beautifully honest, exposing our hypocrisy not to destroy us, but to prick our consciences and guide us back to structural integrity.
Applying these attributes, actively auditing your life for purity, intentionally de-escalating conflict to make peace, ruthlessly dismantling your own biases, and dropping your PR masks to live without hypocrisy. This is what actually transforms Christian living. It takes it from a polite Sunday ritual to a living, breathing, world-changing reality.
It truly does. It is the antidote to the exhaustion we discussed last week. And if you are just grasping the sheer magnitude of this operating system now, and you joined us midway through, please make it a point this week to go back and listen to this series from the beginning.
Yes, definitely.
Seeing the utter exhaustion, the paranoia, and the structural emptiness of earthly wisdom makes the peace and purity of this divine wisdom so much more vibrant.
Absolutely. The contrast is what makes the blueprint so beautiful. Make sure you catch up. But as we wrap up today's deep dive into Pastor Jacob's teaching, this incredible portrait leaves us with a massive, lingering, almost agonizing question.
It demands an origin story. I mean, we know exactly what it looks like, we know how it acts in the street, and we know how it dismantles hypocrisy. But where do we actually get it?
The author, Pastor Jonah Okwudiri Jacob, leaves us with a crucial pivot at the very end of this chapter. We have successfully identified the scriptural mechanics and the attributes of this incredible wisdom. But the final thought for you to wrestle with this week is this: where does it come from?
Right.
If earthly wisdom is absorbed from the world, from our environment, from our algorithms, and from the culture, where is the actual wellspring of this pure, peaceful, and impartial wisdom? How do we tangibly tap into it?
That is the ultimate logistical question for the believer who wants to upgrade their life.
And it is exactly the mystery we will uncover next time. In the very next study of the Voice of Direction series, we're going to turn the page to discover the ultimate source of divine wisdom. You absolutely will not want to miss it. Until then, we pray that God's grace, His structural purity, and His profound peace rest heavily upon you and your family this week. Thank you for studying with us.
God bless you, and we look forward to continuing the journey with you next time.
And as you go about your week, remember the submarine. When the marketplace tells you that just a fraction of a % of compromise is necessary to get ahead, remember that true, enduring strength, the kind that survives the crushing pressure of reality, is first and always pure.